Hello and welcome to Modern Life is Goodish. I'm Dave Gorman and I want to start tonight's show, ladies and gentlemen, by paying tribute to some of the people who work so hard behind the scenes on a show like this. You'll see the credits at the end of the show. Producers, directors, researchers, they all play their part. But there are some people who make a huge contribution and yet they don't even get a credit. I am talking, of course, ladies and gentlemen, about the lawyers and the accountants. They make the show what it is. They really do. I'll give you an example of how they have shaped the show in the past, OK? Earlier in this series, we had a little chat about Noel Edmonds, OK? In particular, his habit of driving an unlicensed black cab with a mannequin in the back. Now, I don't want to retread the same ground here, but there are two clear takeaway facts, which are that, according to the papers, he drives the cab in order to get away with driving in bus lanes and uses the mannequin in order to stop people hailing him for a ride. Now, using this information, we can easily assemble a list of the pros and cons to driving an unlicensed black cab as your own private vehicle. On the plus side, you can cut traffic because you can get away with driving in bus lanes, whereas as a disadvantage, it's a bit annoying because people think you're a cab and try to hail you. And when you first hear that, it makes sense, doesn't it? You buy it, it feels facty. But I don't think that's how bus lanes are policed, are they? I see a lot of these signs out there telling me that they are monitored by cameras. And surely cameras are using automatic number plate recognition, in which case that camera isn't taking in the shape of the car. All it's seeing is that, the number plate. Surely a computer knows whether the number plate belongs to a licensed cab or a private vehicle, in which case there is no advantage to Noel in owning one. He might as well be driving that for all the edge it gives him. And if that is the case, it throws our assumed pros and cons into chaos, doesn't it? The left-hand column is all wrong. That should say it costs £60 a pop to drive in bus lanes just like any other car. In which case, it's in the wrong column, isn't it? That should be over there, obviously. If you're looking for a pro, I think you're left with a surprisingly good turning circle, and I'm not sure that's enough to really swing the balance. Now, this is all speculation on my part, but once something like this is in my head, I want to know for sure. I thought it'd be interesting to find out. So I came up with a 5-point plan, which is as follows. 1, buy a taxi. 2, drive in some bus lanes. 3, buy a mannequin. 4, learn to spell mannequin. And 5, drive with/without the mannequin to see if that has an effect on the hailing behaviour of the people that you pass in the street. Once I've got an idea like that in my head, I want to get my teeth into it straight away. I'm going online, I'm trying to work out the best way of buying a taxi, I'm looking into buying a mannequin. I'm the eager beaver, I'm all puppyish enthusiasm, but the rest of the team are generally a bit more cautious. They want to weigh things up, which goes some way to explaining why I then received this email. This is an email from the channel to my producer, James, who's forwarding it. We're adding the note, "This just in," OK? This is the email. James, as expected, the lawyers won't budge. There's no way we can go along with the driving in bus lanes thing. I know it's not the crime of the century, but the bottom line is this. It's illegal. We're not allowed to pay Dave or anyone to do something we know is illegal. I know he might be tempted to do it anyway. It's Series 5. We're on Series 5. They know me now. I know he might be tempted to do it anyway. We all remember the wall of eggs. I'm not allowed to tell you what the wall of eggs is. But it's the same situation. We couldn't put that in the show, and we won't be able to put this in the show either. Don't do it. That is a very clear message. I'm genuinely understanding of the situation. I really, truly am. But the situation takes a turn for the awkward when, a day or two after that email, I receive another email containing even less welcome news. Yeah, I've bought a mannequin. I hadn't cancelled all my online auction activity. I don't know what I'm doing, but I've spent 180 quid on a mannequin that I can't use. Even more annoying, it was collection only. They weren't going to deliver it. I've got to traipse across town to bloody get it. To add to my annoyance, my car had broken down a few days earlier. I didn't really fancy carrying that thing all the way back on public transport, so I suppose this news came as something of a relief. I've bought a taxi. Don't believe me? There it is. And there's the mannequin in the back of the cab. It fits in a bit easier if you take it apart like that. Now, to be honest, it's weird driving a cab for the first time anyway. The seating position's higher, you're aware that other drivers are treating you differently. Having him in the back doesn't make it any easier. You feel like you're being watched. I'd sort of forget he was there, but every now and then I'd catch it staring at me in the rearview mirror. Anyway, I've got the taxi, which I paid 800 quid for, and I've got the mannequin, which set me back 180 pounds. That's 980 pounds right there, which would be extremely frustrating for me if it was my money. But it's not, it's the show's money. So it's extremely frustrating for them. And you know what? It did create a bit of tension in the team. We're on Dave. We are not a rich show. That's basically a £1,000 dent to our budget, and I've wasted it on things we can't use. There was briefly the suggestion that I should pay for it out of my own money, but we had a show of hands and it went my way, although that was partly down to my insistence that the mannequin's hands should also be counted. But still, I have bought a cab, and so obviously I drive it around a bit. Now, to be honest, the biggest insight into the cab driver's world came through something the previous owner, an actual cab driver, had left in the cab of the cab. The cab driver had left a cab driver's newspaper called The Cab Driver, or to give it its full title, The Cab Driver newspaper. It is a fascinating journal, it really is. Some people think they've got a bit of an agenda. I'm not so sure. See what you think. I mean, there's a page one story here about a disabled cyclist being knocked down by a London Uber driver. And on page 3, there's a story about a London Uber driver being fined £1,500 for plying his trade in the wrong city. And on page 4, there's a story about Uber being kicked out of Taiwan. And then on page 5, there's more on that front page story about the Uber driver. But you know what? It gets worse. He was driving a Prius. Oh, my life. But I also found myself drawn to this advert down here for a strip club. I don't think I've ever seen an ad for a strip club before. And my first thought was, well, I suppose the majority of cabbies are blokes. I guess that makes some kind of sense. But that's before I took in the details. I mean, you can see why I thought they were trying to get cabbies to come to the club, calling all London taxi drivers. But what's this? £20 entrance fee and £35 per head. How can both of those things be true? Unless one of them is very brazenly advertising extras. And to be honest, I'm not sure which one. Now, this is not making a great deal of sense to me. But if we look further down the ad, we start to see what's going on. Yeah? We want you to bring customers to London's newest gentlemen's club. Yeah? London's newest and hottest club rewards London taxi drivers. This is not an ad saying, come and be a customer. This is an ad saying, bring us customers and we'll sort you out. And now the two different prices make sense, don't they? Except they don't. It says here, we will pay you £35 per person for each customer you bring to our club. Capped at 4 per drop. No hassle payout, customer enters, we pay you guaranteed. I had no idea this sort of thing went on. Maybe, I thought, maybe it's a mistake. They'd printed the two numbers in the wrong place. Or maybe this is a new club and they're going with a lost leader to try and build up a loyal fan base. So I started looking around online to see what I could find out, and I found myself on the website Stormcab. Right? This is a website run by a lovely taxi driver. It's full of excellent advice and information for London cabbies. For example, this is the Taxi Tips for Cabbies page, which tells you where you can get 24-hour tea and coffee, stuff like that, where you can get a 24-hour car wash that will clean vomit away, and, you know. Yeah, I know. I think it's safe to assume that's going to come up if you're driving a cab for long enough, isn't it? I mean, you're bound to have a few legless customers now and then, aren't you? I mean, I know I have, and I've only just started. What else is on his menu? Let's have a look. Well, you've got his taxi videos, you've got his London taxi lingo, you've got his London taxi etiquette, and you've got a section called Gentlemen's Clubs. Click on that, and it takes you to this page, which tells you this contains the details of gentlemen's clubs and what their bonuses are for bringing customers. I had no idea this happened. When you scroll down, you find information on loads of different clubs. Now, I'm not allowed to show you the names of the clubs, their addresses, their phone numbers, or their websites, which is why this page is quite so heavily redacted. But the important information is still there. You can see that the prices vary. It's £10 per head down here, it's a pony up there, and yeah, I said pony, yeah. When you've been driving a cab as long as I have. Gets in your veins. That is just the least lucrative end of this market. There's also £40 a head there and £50 there. So I started looking at the club's websites to see how much it costs to get in. And it turns out it is not uncommon, if these figures are accurate, for a taxi driver to get more for the drop than the club takes on the door. That's ridiculous, isn't it? Now, I'm not a strip club kind of guy, but if you are and you're visiting London and you ask a cabbie to recommend one of these flesh pots, I think you are assuming that you are tapping into the taxi driver's other knowledge. You think he's a man of the world and a man of the streets, a man with his ear to the ground and his eyes on the road, who sees everything and knows what's what. You expect him to take you to your most entertaining destination, not his most profitable one. But the most ridiculous thing about a system that starts a club at, say, a £60 disadvantage is that it is surely ripe for exploitation. I mean, what's to stop a driver taking 4 mates to a club just to pocket the difference? All you'd need is 4 friends who are willing to give it a go. And a cab. I'll tell you what. I'll tell you whether or not it works on the other side of the break. I'll see you in a couple of minutes. Welcome back to Modern Life is Goodish. I'm Dave Gorman, and before the break, we were about to investigate the strip club loophole, and not, as appeared in some listings magazines this week, the strip club lubed pole. I can only apologise, I should never have made its way into print. I'm very, very sorry. And I want to be very clear here. At no point am I breaking the law. I'm not pretending to be a cab driver. All I'm doing is taking 4 gentlemen friends out to a gentleman's club. If someone watches me doing so, decides of their own volition to hand me some money, then that's very nice of them, and who am I to argue? My friends, however, aren't sure if gentlemen's clubs are really their sort of thing, so they're going to go in to see if it's to their liking. And if it's not, they're going to come out again and meet me round the corner at a pre-arranged location where I will be waiting just in case. And then we're going to go and do it again somewhere else. That is all that is going on. No law is being broken and no lies are being told. And to begin with, when we first concocted the plan, it sounded like a jolly good idea. Everyone was up for it, it seemed like a bit of a laugh. And then on the night, when you get in the cab and it's dark, and you're driving around the streets of London, and there's a certain atmosphere in the cab, you're suddenly thinking, maybe this isn't such a good idea after all. Because let's be honest, strip clubs have got a reputation. I don't know how well-deserved it is, but the idea floats into your mind that you might find yourself being frog-marched to a cash point and made to withdraw £200 to pay for that bottle of champagne that you didn't ask for. Merited or not, that's the reputation that these clubs have got. So the boys in the back, they're going in a little bit nervous that they're going to meet some bouncers who are perhaps a little bit hostile. And I'm a little bit nervous that taxi drivers are going to think I'm illegally plying for trade. They're going to know I'm not a proper cab. My cab's too old, it doesn't have the right badges on it. They're going to know. If they think I'm taking money from passengers, they'll think I'm taking their trade away. I don't know why, but I get the impression they don't quite like Uber encroaching on their turf. And I suspect they're likely to have an even lower opinion if they think someone is doing the same thing, but disguised as them. I would be sub-Uber and unter-Uber. Anyway. Here we are, arriving at the first club of the evening, OK? Now, the truth is we're not very slick, not on the first run, especially. I'm going to talk you through the various mistakes we make, OK? Mistake number 1 is sort of already evident for the eagle-eyed amongst you. That there is a sat-nav. No bona fide London cabbie should have to use a sat-nav. That's what the knowledge is for. I don't know London like the back of my hand. I need a sat-nav. Mistake number 2 will become evident as we watch what happens next, OK? The person to watch is the guy in the sort of light-coloured shirt on the right-hand side of your screen as he struggles and fumbles with the door.
On account. Okay. All right.
Oh, the door's locked.
Is your foot on the brake, Jack? Yeah.
Yeah, the doors were locked. And the doors were locked because in a taxi, I didn't know this, if you've got your foot on the brake, the doors can't be opened, they are locked. I had no idea. How would I know? I've only had one passenger before, he didn't make much of a fuss. So we've pulled up, there's a couple of bouncers watching all of this, we've pulled up with a sat-nav on the dashboard. We're there for way too long while 4 people wrestle with the doors, and I don't do anything about it whatsoever. We don't look like a proper cab, right? But now, my foot's off the brake, the boys go off, in they go to the club, I sit there, waiting, looking at the bouncers, and the bouncer just looks back at me and just goes... So I reverse out there with my tail between my legs. Now, they each paid £15 each to get into that club. So we've started this experiment £60 down. But I go around the corner and I wait for them to extricate themselves from the club. And, 15, 20 minutes later, they come back out and they get in the cab and we head for club number 2.
There you go, boys.
You can see the doors are open. It's all going much, much better at this stage, OK? We're looking much more legit. And I don't have to wait long before this happens.
Just make sure they pay the entrance, I'll sort you out, yeah? Okay, no worries.
Yeah. I'll just wait until they've paid entrance and then I'll sort you out. That sounds like the sort of sorting out I was hoping for and not the sort of sorting out I was scared of. So I'm sitting there thinking, I can't believe this works. But it does work. Now, I've had to pull forward a little bit to let some traffic by, but a short while later, his mate comes up. And watch, this is me trying to pretend I know what I'm doing, I'm all cool and casual, and what the hell am I doing? If this is a legitimate transaction, why am I making it look like a drug deal? I can't look him in the eye, I can't shake his hand, I can't have a conversation. I'm making this far shiftier than it is. But the important thing is, I got paid. I made a profit. After paying for their entrance to the club, I made a profit at club number 2 of £60. And that, ladies and gentlemen, means that this experiment is now revenue neutral. That's where we are. So suitably emboldened, we know it works now, we go off to a 3rd club. In they go. And this was really exciting to me, because I learned so much in the cab. I've picked up a bit of Cockney. Couldn't help it. I started wearing a flat cap, I'm driving the cab, I'm drinking stronger tea, I'm saying pony a lot. This has started happening to me. There are other languages of the street I had no idea they existed. It turns out, by absorption, I have learned the percussive language of bouncer and cabbie. Never even heard of it before, but I speak it fluently. Not a word is spoken in this exchange. I don't know what I said, but it was the right thing to say, I know that much. Because he came back a couple of minutes later. Now here, you'll see, my instinct here was to count the money. I thought that was the right thing to do. And then that's how far I got when I suddenly thought, hang on, imagine what would happen if a club gives me some money for delivering some punters and they come out 3 minutes later, having not spent any money, only to get into the back of the same cab where the driver is gleefully counting the money. That's not a good look, right? So instead, I just pocket the money and then I smoothly and calmly get out of the way. Now, as it goes, I needn't have worried about the boys coming out of that club too quickly. At this particular club, I seemed to be waiting forever for them to make their escape. They took so long, in fact, that I was getting a little bit worried about them. This is about 40 or maybe even 50 minutes later. They finally come and find me. There they come.
Hi, Dave. Hello there. I'm so sorry that took so long. It was quite difficult to leave. There was a bit more of a atmosphere. That was like quite intense, wasn't it? Like, yeah. We were the only people in. Oh my God.
We were the only people in there. That felt very brothely. Going into a strip club and not buying a drink is, I imagine, quite a challenge. When you're the only customers in there, it's even more so. They did it. For 40 minutes, they sat there in silence and then left. And they were scared. But it was worth it, ladies and gentlemen. I got £80 out of that club. I did all right. Meaning we are now in profit. But the boys, you could tell they were a bit shook up by that experience, a bit unnerved. I didn't want to push my luck. So we just did one more. Off they go.
Thanks.
And then this time, it's from the passenger side window this time. Money comes in, and that, ladies and gentlemen, that represented a profit of £100. In total, I made £180 just by ferrying my friends to strip clubs where nothing happened. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why I want to pay tribute to the lawyers this evening. Because let's be honest, that was more interesting than seeing whether or not you get fined in a bus lane. The lawyers stopped me doing something illegal and dodgy. The lawyers stopped me doing something illegal and dodgy, and somehow it led to me doing something legal but dodgier. I'll see you after the break. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Now, if you're just joining us, you haven't missed much. Just a story about me making a few quid working the strip clubs. Now, I find a lot of people have started getting in touch with me to suggest topics that they think are ripe for the modern life is goodish treatment. And one thing that comes up with alarming regularity is the modern-day supermarket automatic checkout. For example, I got a tweet from this chap who said, have you done anything on modern life about self-service checkouts yet? If not, why not? Well, I haven't done anything on the subject before, and the truth is, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just not overly burdened with opinion on the self-service checkout. If anything, I would say my first thought is I don't really like the phrase self-service checkout. It just sounds like something old people go to Switzerland for, you know? I'm not sure that's the phrase we should be using. Now, the thing is, there are times when I prefer them. I mean, if you're buying a meal for one with a full-size Viennetta, the automatic till does not judge you. That's what I'm saying. In my local supermarket, I've been a semi-regular customer there since before the automatic checkouts were introduced. I was in there the other day with my little toddler, Eric. I said to him, Eric, my lad, I remember when this was all tills. And he was like, oh, my dad's got all the best stories, you know. He says what he thinks, my lad. Just the other day, he said to me, Daddy, if you're going to take your friends to the strip clubs again tonight, do I have to have the same babysitter? Uncle Mannequin doesn't do anything. I guess if I have any issue with these things, it's really to do with what is lost. It's not just that there used to be, for example, 4 tills there. There used to be 4 people working on those tills as well, didn't there? But now, that's just one person. And their job is to monitor the 6 new self-service checkouts. Of course, the supermarket's argument is that these things free people up to work elsewhere, like the bread aisle or the fish counter or not in the supermarket. And those are the people I feel sorry for. The people who no longer work in the supermarket. So much so, I can't really bear it if the one who's left has to get involved. When I'm using the self-service checkouts, the challenge for me is to get through the experience without requiring any assistance. Because if the man has to come over, I have to look him in the eye. And that's hard. He is the lone survivor of the robot uprising. He's seen all his friends fall by the wayside, but they've kept him on as the robot servant. That can't be nice, can it? That's like being the waiter at your ex-wife's wedding. So I do anything I can to avoid that interaction. The other day, I was in there with little Eric. I was just buying some simple groceries, and I'd popped some garlic in the same little flimsy bag as some onions, right? I put it on the scales without realising. I told the machine it was onions, and then I put it in my shopping. And it's only then that I notice the garlic is in the same bag. So now I'm accidentally stealing. I'm buying garlic at onion prices. And that's just not right, is it? I might be many things, ladies and gentlemen, but a garlic thief is not one of them. So I took the garlic out, and the machine suddenly got quite upset because it thinks I've taken out an onion, and so I put it back again, and now I want to pay for my garlic, but I don't want to attract the attention of the man, so I looked around for anything I could weigh instead of the garlic, and I thought, all right, I took one of Eric's shoes off, right? With that on the scale, told the machine that was garlic, and I paid for that. And it worked. No human interaction required. Mission accomplished. When we walked out of there, I felt like I'd done a bank job. Even though, if anything, I think I'd probably overpaid. And I say we walked out. I walked. For some reason, Eric was limping. Anyway. I did it. I beat the machine with a child's shoe. And I know I probably shouldn't be quite so proud of that, but I guess you just have to regard this as an unexpected item in the bragging area. Now, I know a couple of people... No. Definitely not worth it. Now, I know a couple of people who refuse to use the self-checkouts out of solidarity with the workers. Their argument is that every time you use one, someone somewhere loses their job. And they might be right. But I also know that they buy books online. And when they get money out of the bank, they don't queue up to get counter service. They use the cash point like everyone else. And isn't that the same thing? What's the difference? I'll tell you what the difference is. The difference is that the cash point at the bank is efficient. It works, it's quick, and it's easy. Whereas the automatic checkout makes mistakes. It needs someone to tell you if you're an adult or not. It doesn't know if it's weighing broccoli or cauliflower or a shoe. I think that's the real reason they're not using them. You can dress it up with some moral fibre if you like, but there are plenty of opportunities to take the human-staffed route in life, and you don't take it when the machine is better at the job. And this is the uncomfortable truth for all of us. If your job can be done by a robot, your job will be replaced by a robot at some point. Sometimes you'll find people who aren't taking the moral high ground on behalf of humankind, they're on the side of the machines. How else can you explain the public outcry over this story? Oh, Big Ben to be silenced for 4 years for maintenance. People are outraged. I think it's been made quite clear that doing the work while it continues to chime will damage the hearing of the people doing the work. And yet there are plenty of people who want that to happen. Imagine cheerfully wishing deafness on a person because you don't want to hurt the feelings of a clock. That's an amazing place to be. You are literally putting the feelings of a machine before the health and well-being of a real, actual human person. Of course, the papers knew who or what was to blame for this. Health and safety was the cry of the Evening Standard and the Sun. The cab driver went with Big Ben, allegedly killed by London Uber driver. They didn't. They didn't. I made that one. They didn't. I made that one. Elsewhere, it was discussed in different terms, but many words of upset were written about this subject. And, oh, I do love it when people get their knickers in a twist about something that seems so trivial, ladies and gentlemen. I've read every single comment I can find on these stories. I've taken my favourites and turned them into something that I like to call a found poem that I would like to perform for you now. I understand that the sound of the bells could damage the hearing of those working to repair Big Ben. What I don't understand is why they don't just employ people who are already deaf. Well. Proof that our once great nation is going to hell in a handbag. Bong! Mate, it's a clock. Health and safety succeeds where the Luftwaffe fail. If you replace an electricity socket, do you leave the power on whilst doing it? Of course not. It would kill you. Dead. So why should it be any different for repairing a clock that could bong you to death? Bong. Well, I, for one, am delighted. I live near Big Ben, and frankly, that bell is quite annoying. This is a state-sponsored attack on the indigenous Cockney working class. Everyone knows the legal definition of a Cockney is someone who was born within the sound of Big Ben's bells. When they silence those bells, they kill off the Cockneys. Genocide. It's Bow Bells for Cockneys, you wazzock. Bong. 4 years for repairs? Who's doing the work? The French. It's just a bell. It's not the passing of some great statesman or entertainer. It's literally just a thing that goes boing. Bong. Well, well, well. Another piece of our national identity gets consigned to the dustbin of history. Boing. Surely you mean bong. Bong. I hate the word bong. A bell chimes. It does not bong. You're right. It's bong out of order. Mock me all you like, but at 87, I might not get to hear Big Ben chime again. I have every sympathy, my friend. My nana's hearing went around that age too. Bong. I thank you. The Bill Ross String Ensemble. And timpani drums, ladies and gentlemen. I'll see you after the break. Modern Life is Goodish, where what we've been talking about so far is, I suppose, the battle between man and machine. The machine is better than a human at knowing what's a taxi and what isn't. A machine is better at knowing that a barcode represents a tin of beans rather than a packet of biscuits. And as I said earlier, if your job could be replaced by a machine, then the chances are your job will be replaced by a machine. When they build robots that are capable of building new robots, our time is up. People say that the entertainment industry, which I would like to work in one day, is going to be one of the last sectors to fall, but I'm not so sure. I think there are jobs in the entertainment sector that could be done by robots. For example, ladies and gentlemen, the human statue. Think about it, if the main job is standing still, something that human beings find quite tricky, then it's got to be something that a machine could do better, hasn't it? Think about it. A human statue can't look too much like an actual statue, or people won't realise that they're there. So what would happen if you got something that is effectively an actual statue, but made it look like a human statue? Would people put money in the hat for an actual statue? I mean, it's a nice idea, but where are we going to find a statue that we can manipulate like that? Ladies and gentlemen, the perfect thing. So we set about making it happen. We found a human statue. He's genuinely brilliant. His name is Mark. Really, really talented bloke, right? The challenge is, can we make the mannequin look as human statue-y as Mark? And I think we can. If we just bring in the mannequin. All right. Thank you very much. That is a mannequin. It looks pretty convincing, doesn't it? Although, hang on, sorry. If he's here, who's looking after Eric? Excuse about that. Anyway, I think that's quite convincing. I mean, imagine you were to see that in a public space somewhere, just standing there in a market square or something. Why would it be anything other than a human statue? So we ran a 2-day experiment. On day 1, our human statue does a 3-hour stint. Right? On day 2, the statue does the same 3 hours. And we already have an advantage here. The human statue needs to take regular breaks. The statue doesn't. So how are real people going to react to them? Let's think about what's actually happening in this experiment. Initially, this appears to be the experiment. You've got a man pretending to be a statue versus a statue pretending to be a statue. And on the surface, that ought to be a slam dunk for the statue, shouldn't it? But of course, intuitively, we all know that's not quite what is being tested, is it? What's really going on is a man pretending to be a statue and a statue pretending to be a man pretending to be a statue. Or is it? It turns out it's actually a bit more complicated than that. Right? This is day 1 of the experiment. This is Mark, the human statue, who's in place. Now, that young lad in the blue is about to put some money in the box. This is being secretly filmed by a friend who's got a tiny camera poking out of his duffel bag, so you'll have to look through the crowd of people who are passing between us and the action. But watch what the human statue does when the money lands. Yeah, he starts moving. He's no longer a statue, is he? Doing a little robotic bow, yeah? He moves, and he moves a bit like a robot. I genuinely hadn't considered the idea that a human statue does anything other than stand still. But that changes the game again, doesn't it? What we've really got going on here is a man pretending to be a statue and sometimes pretending to be a robot versus a statue pretending to be a man, pretending to be a statue, not pretending to be a robot. And I think we can see that that's what gives the human statue the competitive advantage. Now, I'm not going to string things out with false tension and pretend we don't know who's going to make the most money. We do. Everyone in this room knows that the human being will have earned the most money. And of course he does. Now, I don't think it's going to come as a surprise to anyone to discover that the man also won in this category. Simply the number of people who stopped and engaged and put money in the box. That was also a big win for the man. But while it's not at all surprising that the man won with 36 interactions, 36 people stopped and chipped in, I find it genuinely surprising that as many as 25 people did the same for our plastic friend. Just goes to show you it genuinely is quite convincing. But here's where the results get properly peculiar. Per person, the mannequin earned more money than the man did. And there is a reason for that. I'll give you just one example, OK? This is day 2, obviously, so that's the mannequin. This is the people to watch. There's a chap and his daughter here, OK? If I just run this tape on, you'll see he gives his daughter a pound coin or something, and she sort of nervously approaches, not quite sure which angle to go from. But she does. She chips the money in, and then nothing happens. And now they don't quite know what to do. So what do they do? Well, I'll put it on fast forward. What happens is they hang around for quite a long time looking at it until eventually they put more money in, presumably thinking, maybe we didn't put enough in the first time. And they weren't alone. A significant number of the 25 people who put money in once and got no reaction would watch it for a little while and then put money in again as if it was a broken vending machine that might be nudged into activity with the right coinage. Now, given what we've just seen, you might not be surprised that the time per punter category was also a big win for the mannequin. We've already seen the frustration with the lack of reward caused a few people to hang around for longer than is seemly. And according to our figures, the average for the human being was 53 seconds, OK? Just shy of a minute. For the mannequin, the average was 2 minutes and 42 seconds. That means that on average, people spent 3 times as long with the thing that does nothing. 2 minutes and 42 seconds, that's the average. But I should be fair and point out that these numbers are skewed quite a lot by the dad and daughter combo that we saw earlier. They were there for a truly remarkable 36 minutes. 36! And during their 36 minutes, they had so many clues that this thing was not human. Not just the 3 times they put money in the box for no reward. They saw so much other cast iron proof, OK? Watch the girl in the yellow, OK? Watch how much the statue moves when she gets involved with it, OK? You have to look closely. Off it goes. Look at that. Wriggle, wriggle, wriggle. Wriggle, wriggle. If you're not convinced, look at it in close-up. Yeah. It's obviously a mannequin. They're standing there watching that happen. It's either a mannequin or the best human statue ever, but one who's only good at the first half of the job. And it's not just watching other people test it. They got properly involved. Here's Dad giving it a little poke. That's about 12 minutes in. By the time they left, the 2 of them had been there for 36 minutes. And then they came back. But this time, they brought Mom with them. Huh? And I say Mom because they were American tourists. They all came back together, Mom, Dad, and their young daughter. Anyway, it takes the mum less than a minute to establish that it's not a real person, it's a mannequin, and then they go. But that means that their total interaction time was 37 minutes. 37 minutes of investment with this statue. They have well and truly skewed the statistics. If you take them out of the equation, It changes the averages quite considerably. It comes down to 58 seconds. And don't go thinking, oh, well, they were just stupid Americans. That's a lazy thing to think. They were not just stupid Americans. There was a reason they spent as much time as they did with the mannequin. And I know what the reason was. It's something that can be explained by looking at some of the other footage from day one, when we were filming the human statue. Because that there is the same dad and his daughter. Now, this time they had their older brother or whatever with them as well. They just happened to be in there 2 days running. Must have been staying in a hotel nearby. On day one, they loved it. They had amazing interaction with it. Oh, look at that. She's loving that, isn't it? Have a look at that again. Oh, contrast that with what happens on day two. She's not the only one. Dad gets involved, bit of play acting for his daughter. Oh, look at that. They're having a great laugh, aren't they? It's not just that. He shakes its hand. Okay. And then her daughter, she puts some money in the pot as well. That happens. And what happens? She gets a bow, a little tip of the hat. He blows her a robotic kiss. Imagine you're that daughter, 6, 7 years of age or whatever she is. You're on holiday. You've seen a human statue. It's brilliant. It's loads of fun. It does all this amazing stuff. And then you walk into the same place and there's a thing that looks exactly like it there again. Why would you not think it's the same thing? You can just imagine what they were thinking. Every time people are moving it, they're going, this guy has upped his game. I mean, now he's just like a real statue. Yesterday he was letting on, but today, whew, either that or he had frozen overnight. Wouldn't it be horrible to find a human statue you liked had died of hypothermia? Anyway, that is the reason they were there for 37 minutes. So let's get down to the brass tacks, OK? In his 3 hours, the human man earned £32.75, which means his pounds per punter came in at 91p, just shy of a pound. But the mannequin, ladies and gentlemen, made £28.40. £28.40, which works out at £1.12 per person. Obviously, we know the human statue is better than the mannequin. But at £28.40, it turns out that the mannequin is 87% as good as a human statue. I would say that's not far off what a self-service checkout is in relation to a human checkout operator. It's 87% as good. And his lifestyle is nowhere near to being 87% as expensive. He lives rent-free. He doesn't need food or drink. So in some ways, this is the more successful model. And I use the word model advisedly. So what does all this prove? Well, probably not too much. But I'll tell you this. At the start of this show, ladies and gentlemen, I told you that I was £980 in the hole for buying my taxi and my mannequin. I also explained how I succeeded in earning £180 working the strip clubs. And if you're tuning in late, I'm aware that's going to sound very confusing. I have now sold the taxi on eBay. I sold it for £720, but don't go thinking that takes my earnings up to £900. There are listing fees and so on. This isn't bargain hunt. We can't just pretend those things aren't there. So I didn't get the full 720. I actually pocketed £690, which takes my total up to 870. My mannequin is now earning money as well. And his contribution from my experiment takes me up to £898.40. But of course, the only reason the mannequin was restricted to a 3-hour shift was to make the comparison with our human statue fair. But he'll work for as many hours as you like. So I put it back out there for a couple of days, working 9 till 6. Ladies and gentlemen, it earned £92.55, which takes my total to £990.95, which means you have been watching the very first television programme that's ever been made for free. And that is why tonight's show is dedicated to both the lawyers and the accountants. I don't think any TV show has ever done more to try and keep those people happy. Thanks for watching. Good night.